Hi. Did you know that 97% of people who say they want to write a book never finish the first draft? That means if you put 100 writers in one room, only 3 of them are going to walk out with a finished draft, and that's just the first one. And out of 3 writers who finish the first draft, do you want to know how many of them are most likely going to get published? 0.6. You gotta be split into decimal points if you want to get published. Hello, how are you? My name is Ollie, and I'm a writer. You may or may not have guessed. This is my baby Project Revenant. She's right behind me. I love this book. I love the world I've created inside my head. I love the characters. They're basically just me, but split into like 8 different parts. And I'm around, I want to say 45,000 words into the first draft, so it's going pretty well. Do you want to know how long I spent thinking about this book before writing it? 3 years. Yeah, I spent all that time thinking about writing this book and never actually writing it or starting it until February this year. The point of me telling you this is that I know a thing or two about procrastination. Guess you could say I'm a procrastinator. No one's gonna laugh at that. I know what it's like to be stuck in that limbo of wanting to write your book and just not seemingly being able to. The first draft, one of, if not the hardest stages of the writing process for most writers. It's the furthest thing from what you want your book to actually be, and we all have to go through it. There's no doubt you're here because you just cannot get past the first chapter. You know it's terrible, and you know it's going to be terrible for a long time before it actually gets good. And that thought is just too daunting. However, these bad drafts are exactly how we get some of the best books of our time. It's scary, it sucks, but there are thousands of writers who have gone through this and come out the other side with masterpieces and have plenty of advice to share with you so we can get through this together. Let's hold hands while we do this, okay? If I can do it, trust me, you can too. Without further ado, here is my advice on how to actually start writing the first draft. We've gone over this. The first draft is one of the hardest stages of writing. For a lot of writers, it is the hardest part because it's one thing to have the idea in your head and it's another to actually put it into words. So 97% of people who say they want to write a book never actually do. And one of the major reasons I think why is perfectionism. Our good old friend. Ugh. No doubt you want your book to be good, right? Well, I think the major thing holding us back from being able to write that good book is that expectation for it to be this grand magnum opus right from the get-go. A ton of writers don't even start their first draft because they are worried about their abilities to do it justice. I'm looking at you. An artist's worst enemy really is themselves. I have told myself for 3 years that the first draft of Project Revenant is going to be bad. And again, I've only just started it this year in February. You can tell yourself that what you want to do will be bad and still not start it. There's a difference between procrastination on your project because you're worried it won't be good and just procrastination. Because assumedly, you know what to do. You've watched the videos, you know how to start a story, but you still won't. There's a certain type of delayment where we think we're being productive by watching all these videos on how to write a book, and how to edit your book, and how to publish a book when you haven't even put the first words down. At least when you aren't doing any of that, you know you're being unproductive, but at some point you have to accept the fact that you do know how to do this, but you just won't start. If you couldn't tell, this video was assuming that you have already done a proper amount of research. If you haven't, I highly suggest checking out all of these videos. They are super beginner friendly and really helped me when I was in the trenches. Anyway, back to scripted, Ollie. You're worried about the first draft being good, but it will never be good if you won't let it be in the first place. A lot of advice for draft 1 I hear is, it's okay if it's bad, but I would even go further to say that it's kind of supposed to be bad, especially when it's your very first draft of anything. Unless you're a seasoned writer of 10 years, it's probably going to read like a Wattpad novel. And there's a point where you have to be okay with that, because only when you've written a draft can you literally see all your problems you have with it laid out for you in chronological order. As long as you keep the mindset that you just need to do one more thing and then you're ready, you will never start and you will always be in this endless cycle. You'll only get older and your story will only linger in your mind for so much longer because you keep waiting for the right moment to start, but you know you won't have that moment. So just start. It's uncomfortable, it's weird, it's nothing like how you want it to be. But would you rather have a terrible book you know you can fix later on, or a dream running wild through your head while you sit there at a blank document? That's a bit bleak, let's move on. Now, to all my pantsers out there, I'm not talking about writing a full-on outline. I'm certainly not writing my first draft with one, and it's going great. But also, an outline and trying to write one was honestly part of the reason why I was stuck in that 3-year limbo. That being said, some form of preparation, I promise, will be so helpful for you. Because whether or not you're a plotter or a pantser, at some point you are going to have some kind of clear idea of what your story's about. The only difference between these two roles is when that happens. I highly recommend having at least a little bit of a plan before you start. And these are some of my favorite ways to do so. Number 1 is having a clear idea idea of the start of your story and the end of your story. Very rarely have I come across the writer who has genuinely pantsed their entire story. There is little doubt you will have some kind of direction of what you want to write about, what kinds of characters you have in mind, some scenes maybe you want to write. I really suggest mapping out the plot beats of the start of your story and the end of your story, just so you at least have a guaranteed place to begin and a place you know you're headed towards. This is really what helped me get pretty far into the first draft. Some might say too far for me to back out at this point. I just kind of got to a word count where I was like, okay, I guess this is what I'm working with now. I might not have a damn clue what my characters are doing right now, but they're doing something and it's getting me more words, so I think I'll keep going. They're just kind of like fumbling around until the last 5 chapters where I actually kind of have an idea of what they're gonna do. Even so, I'm still writing it. Number 2 is having a summary page. This is what really helped me ground the story and made me feel like I was actually writing something and not just a ton of nonsense. It's kind of like a character profile, but for the entire book. What I'll do is I'll start out by writing the title or the project name of the story. I'll get a good sense of all the genres I want to write about, age, the target audience. Then what I'll do is I'll write a short synopsis of what I want to happen in the story, or a blurb of everything from the orientation up until the post-inciting incident. If I feel like it, I'll add on by writing the most basic 3-act structure of what I want to happen in the story. I will then add a list of all the main characters, their ages, personalities, goals, conflicts, just again to get a ground level sense of them so I don't feel like I'm writing cardboard the entire time. There's a couple of other stuff I might do, and really you can customize this however you want, but it really just helps me feel settled into the story and like what I'm writing is actually good and what I eventually know it'll be once I push past this first draft. And number 3, this one is really helpful for me. For a week before you start writing the first draft, every day, set a timer for 10 minutes and just write for those 10 minutes. You can do this with or without a prompt, but how this exercise works is I will set a timer for 10 minutes, and for those 10 minutes, I will just write. I don't stop. It's good because it literally forces you to stop thinking about how bad it is. You don't have time to panic, you have 10 minutes. All of these exercises or practices are really what helped me get settled into the story. So I didn't feel like I was diving headfirst into the deep end without actually learning how to swim. For me, it's kind of like a perfect midway point between plotter and pantser. I really hate the word pantser. Can I just say that right now? I really hate it. Comment down below if there's like some better alternative I can use in my future videos. I'll give you a shout out or whatever. What was I saying? Yeah, it's a good point in between the two. You don't have to, and I really wouldn't recommend like choosing a strict role between one or the other. I feel like everyone dabbles in a bit of both at some points. Writing is an art. You can do whatever you want. There are no rules. Okay, I'm just gonna say this, from the revising stage onwards, this step is kind of irrelevant because no reader wants to be subject to 150,000 words of pure trash because someone thought good writing meant a lot of writing. That's false. I would know. I read the entire Shadow Me series. I think a major problem is the daunting feeling of starting a new book. I mean, you're trying to write an entire book. That's a big commitment, and one that requires a lot of attention and consistency. The idea is very tiring to think about, especially when you're worrying about it having to be good to start off with. Once again, it never will be good unless you let some version of it be in the first place. The first draft is going to be hard enough merely writing it. Having that expectation on yourself will only add to the pressure. Once you let go of that perfectionism, you'll realize you need to save some of that expectation for later. What matters is not that your one-liners are on par with Shakespeare, okay? What matters is that you finish what you sought out to do. Keep in mind that this is not supposed to be good right now. This doesn't mean you should like intentionally write it badly. I don't want you to suffer during revisions. But for draft 1, I always go by quantity over quality. Again, if you constantly stress about what you're writing right now, you never will finish it. But if you accept the suckage and plow forward, you will have a finished version of the story you want to write and a writer's next biggest problem: consistency. Remember all those times you told yourself, maybe I'll write 1,000 words today, and then you cranked out maybe like 103? Before deleting all of them because they weren't good enough? Any progress during this stage of writing is usually going to be better than no progress at all. The goal is to build a habit of writing as consistently as possible, and that's not going to happen if you dump 2,000 words in one day and then just not touch the document for a whole month. It's like sugar. You get a burst of energy and then you crash. For beginner writers especially, I highly recommend starting with smaller goals rather than overarching ones to begin with. This also helps you focus on getting into the habit of writing even when you don't feel like it. I also find that it just makes makes me want to keep going. 300 words every day as a starting goal is enough for me to get into the writing mood and kind of want to keep going with my writing session. The result of this is to build habit and slowly increase it over time. You wouldn't go to the gym and immediately start on the highest weight of the dumbbells. No, you have to build that resistance and muscle over time so that you are prepared to lift those weights. Luckily, there are other strategies to really enforce that consistency. The first is having some kind of routine. This could be anything really. A designated time for when you start writing in the day. Maybe it's after school or after dinner. Maybe you wake up an hour earlier so you have more time to write. So it could be something like in the middle of your everyday routine. You could also have a process for the actual writing session. I like to do writing sprints, so that's 15 minutes of writing and then 5 minutes of a break. Repeat that process 3 times, that's an hour of writing. Having a routine is great because if you keep doing it, your brain will naturally fall into that process and it'll start to feel wrong if you decide not to do it, which you will have to not do at some points, but you know. Number 2, reward systems. You aren't doing all of this writing for nothing, of course. I mean, you're gonna get a finished book at the end of the tunnel, but that's so far away. Setting up a reward system for yourself helps you to look forward to writing because you know that there's something waiting for you at the end of certain periods. If you have a specific word count estimate for the entire project, I suggest splitting it up into different sections, and for each of those checkpoints, you get a reward for yourself. A little treat, if you will. And number 3, having a writing journal. This thing is my Bible. If there's one thing I need while writing, it's a place to dump my thoughts. I use this to track my progress, to look back and see how far I've come. I use it to jot down any ideas I have while writing, because trust me, you'll need to invest in that. Sometimes I just draw my characters when I want to fall in love with my story all over again, and really see a glimpse of what I know it can become. No, the Australian's slipping out because if there's one thing my first draft is really good at, it's making me slowly start to hate the characters. I dabble in some occasional poetry here too. It'll never see the light of day, but I just thought I'd let you guys know. This is basically like a personal sanctuary. Again, you can use it for anything, anywhere, anyhow. Consistency will take you much further than how It's fine. Consistency will take you much further than how many words you write or how much time you spend writing. The more efficient thing to focus on is making sure you write regularly. You don't have to write every day. It's definitely not for every writer, but it is important to hold yourself accountable and to a standard. Just make sure that level of standard isn't like Shakespeare or anything, especially not when you're just starting. I've made 2 Shakespeare references in this entire video. I know nothing about that guy. Comment down below, is he actually a good writer? I think people often forget that there's not an official playbook to the entire creative process in any form. It's whatever you want it to be. But when you're scared to start something, your brain will automatically come up with excuses as to why you won't do it. But Ollie, I just don't have the time to write. Yes, you do. You're watching this video. But Ollie, I have no idea what happens in the story and outlining isn't helping. Then maybe you just need to take the plunge and start it anyway. That's how I'm writing the book right now, and it's going good. It may be pretty bad overall, but I'm getting something done. But Ollie, what if I lose motivation? You will. Everyone will. Everyone will lose motivation for the things they're working on. It's literally inevitable. You will want to quit. You will want to scrap the entire thing and just throw it in the trash. You will want to start again over and over, and that can work for some writers, but a lot of the time you'll fall into this endless loop of rewriting and ultimately never getting any version of the story you want done. It has to get worse before it gets better. Once again, when you finish that draft, you'll have all of your problems laid out for you in order. Really, the best advice I can give is to just start and stick with it as much as you can. Other than that, follow your own process. Most writing advice, if you think about it, really is just suggestions that work for the majority of people. Some people hate outlining with a burning passion. For others, it has saved their entire life. I get comments on my TikTok all the time asking me, is this a good idea? Is it better if I do this or this? Or blah, 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 blah. My answers to all of those questions is gonna be yes. In truth, I don't know. It could be good or bad because it's all about how you execute it. You don't need to follow a full-time best-selling author's routine if it doesn't work for you. You can follow your own according to what your week looks like. Only you know how your life really is. You aren't falling behind on anyone else's terms but your own. Same as no one's looking over your shoulder as you're writing the first draft and telling you how much it sucks. It's also okay to take your time writing the story. There's no set deadline, especially not for this stage. Some writers you will see will finish a first draft in a matter of 2 months, but that doesn't mean you are any less of a real writer because you're spending like 2 years on your first draft. It especially doesn't mean they're more passionate than you about your story, or they have more love for the story and the creative process than you do. When I talk about accepting the suckage and writing regardless of quality, that's because the first hurdle most writers have to go through is accepting that. This doesn't mean you have to write without care or thought or precision. It's only a problem when you are so hyper-focused on the quality of the story you're writing that you you ultimately lose sight of what you actually are doing. Other than that, it is perfectly fine to take your time and slow down with the story you want to be good. Good things take a lot of time. You know, my favorite book, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, took over half a decade to write. It's my favorite thing I've ever read. You don't even have to write the draft in order. You can write backwards, jump to random scenes, change and go completely off script. You can do anything during this process. This is probably the most personal moment of your story. It's just you and a crazy idea you have in your head. So more importantly, try to have fun with it. Perhaps embrace that it reads like a 13-year-old wrote it on Wattpad. This draft doesn't have to be and definitely will not be the final draft. There will be plenty of time to edit it later on. There'll be plenty of time for me to make a video on how to edit it when I finish. For now, getting any version of this story is better than nothing at all. There you go, that is 20 or so minutes of me subtly begging you to start writing your book. Seriously, the world needs your stories. Go. What are you still doing here? Leave. Don't actually leave, I have something to tell you. While we're still here, I should mention I've reached 40,000 words of my first draft. I am so sick of these characters. This book, Project Revenant, is an LGBTQ dark fantasy, which I am probably going to start making more videos centering around. I'm planning for my content to revolve around a mix of writing advice and writing vlogs, I guess. Are there any other type of writing videos? I could do a Q&A. How fun would that be, guys? But seriously, thank you so much to everyone who has shown support for this channel. I know it isn't much, my videos, but I just have to get something out here for you guys this year. I have tried to start a YouTube channel multiple times in the past few years. Haven't been able to do it, so I'm hoping this one sticks. And I hope this video is better than the last one. I'm not great at editing, as you can probably guess, but I think I'm somewhat okay at it. Aren't we at most things? Just somewhat okay. Ollie 2025, don't steal that. Thanks for watching. Good night, Ollie Nation. Take care of yourself.